The United States just paid nearly $61 billion in interest on its national debt in a single month. A staggering figure that overshadows almost any other line item in the federal budget. At the same time, the Treasury is collecting new revenue from tariffs, with projections that those collections could exceed $300 billion this year. This contrast, billions going out to service debt, while new money flows in from tariffs, has ignited one of the biggest fiscal debates in Washington. Should tariff revenue be used to pay down the nation's $37 trillion debt, or should it be redistributed to families as rebate checks? It's a question that cuts across politics and economics, and it matters for ordinary Americans trying to pay bills, retirees watching inflation eat into their savings, and policymakers grappling with fiscal realities. Before diving in, here's a quick thought experiment. If the government had an extra $300 billion, would you rather it go toward reducing debt or directly into people's pockets? What are tariffs and why do they matter? At the most basic level, tariffs are taxes on imported goods. Under former President Trump's trade strategy, tariffs were expanded dramatically, affecting everything from industrial machinery to everyday consumer products. The goals are twofold. 1. Encourage domestic production by making imports more expensive. 2. Generate revenue for the government from foreign companies and importers. Since April, the U.S. Treasury has already collected over $100 billion from tariffs, with annual estimates suggesting this could climb above $300 billion. That sounds like an enormous sum, but context matters. The scale of the national debt. America's national debt stands at $37 trillion. To put that in perspective, 1 month's interest payments, nearly $61 billion, already dwarf tariff revenues. In fact, the government spends more on interest each month than it collects from tariffs in a quarter. Interest costs are climbing quickly because of higher interest rates set by the Federal Reserve. What's more concerning is that these costs are now competing with major programs like defense spending, Social Security, and Medicaid. The debt isn't just a number on paper. It's a growing share of taxpayer money that no longer funds services, infrastructure, or benefits. Instead, it pays creditors. The American Worker Rebate Act, a populist proposal. Senator Josh Hawley has proposed the American Worker Rebate Act, which would use tariff revenue to issue direct payments to Americans. The concept is straightforward: $600 checks per person, including dependents. A family of 4 could receive $2,400. Payments would mirror the pandemic-era stimulus checks. Hawley frames it as economic justice. If tariffs are collected from foreign companies, Americans deserve a share of that money. Politically, the plan resonates. For many households, a check could mean groceries, rent, medical bills, or catching up on credit card debt. The administration's stance: debt first. But Trump's own Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, has taken a different view. He argues that paying down the debt must come before rebate checks. His reasoning is pragmatic. While checks would provide immediate relief, the larger challenge is America's ballooning interest payments. Allowing debt to spiral unchecked risks long-term fiscal instability. Bessent has not completely ruled out rebate checks, but insists they are not the priority right now. Two sides of the debate. This sets up a sharp divide. Pro-rebate camp: Hawley, populists, some lawmakers. Direct payments provide immediate relief. Symbolic justice: Americans should benefit from tariff revenue. Checks could bolster consumer spending. Debt-first camp: Treasury, fiscal conservatives, deficit hawks. Tariff revenue is small compared to the debt. Paying down debt strengthens the financial position of the U.S., cutting checks risks fueling inflation and undermining fiscal discipline. Even within the Republican Party, opinions differ. Senator Rand Paul called the rebate proposal the dumbest idea he had heard. Others, like Senator Ron Johnson, said they'd only consider rebates if the government were running a budget surplus, which it decidedly is not. Why $300 billion doesn't go far on debt. At first glance, $300 billion sounds transformative. But compared to $37 trillion in debt, it's like tossing a bucket of water into the ocean. Here's the math. $300 billion is less than 1% of the total debt. It covers just 5 months of interest payments at current levels. While symbolically important, the scale is too small to alter the trajectory of America's debt. This is one reason some economists call tariff revenue a drop in the bucket compared to the government's financial obligations. The consumer cost of tariffs may appear to be free money collected from foreign companies, but in practice, the cost often trickles down to American consumers. Importers raise prices to offset tariffs. Businesses pass these costs to customers. Everyday goods, from electronics to groceries, become more expensive. So while tariffs fund rebates or debt payments, Americans may be paying higher prices at checkout. Critics argue this makes rebates self-canceling. The government takes with one hand and gives with the other. Inflation concerns. Another risk tied to rebates is inflation. If tariff revenue is redistributed in the form of checks, that injects more cash into circulation. During the pandemic, stimulus checks helped stabilize households, but they also contributed to inflationary pressures. In today's environment, where prices are already high, economists warn that rebate checks could worsen the problem, particularly for essentials like food, energy, and housing. Sustainability of tariff revenue. There's also a structural issue. Tariff revenue isn't reliable. The more tariffs increase, the more likely imports will shrink as businesses seek alternatives or scale back purchasing. This reduces the base from which tariffs are collected. That makes tariff revenue a moving target, not the kind of steady, predictable income stream needed for either sustainable debt reduction or ongoing rebate programs. The ripple effect. Tariffs, interest rates, and households. One overlooked consequence is how tariffs interact with higher interest rates. Treasury Secretary Besant has acknowledged that low-income families and the housing market are under strain. Here's why. Tariffs raise costs for building materials. Higher interest rates increase mortgage costs. Combined, they can drive housing prices higher, squeezing first-time buyers and renters. This creates a ripple effect across the economy, from construction firms to consumer spending. Political symbolism versus economic reality. The debate reveals a tension between political symbolism and economic reality. Sending rebate checks is politically appealing. Voters feel direct benefits. Paying down debt is less visible, but arguably more responsible in the long term. The problem is that neither option fundamentally solves America's fiscal challenges. Tariffs generate too little revenue to meaningfully reduce debt, and rebates risk short-term relief at the cost of long-term inflation. The bigger picture: inequality, debt, and frustration. Zooming out, the tariff debate is part of a broader struggle over how America manages economic inequality, rising debt, public frustration with gridlock tariffs. Feel attractive because they seem like free money collected from abroad, but the truth is more complicated, and much of the burden eventually falls on American households. The credit card analogy. Imagine you had a massive credit card balance and suddenly got an unexpected bonus at work. Would you? 1. Use it to pay down your debt? 2. Take your family on a big vacation? neither choice is inherently wrong. Paying debt improves your financial future, while a vacation creates immediate joy and relief. But the consequences are very different. That's exactly where the U.S. finds itself with tariff revenue. What it means for your wallet. For ordinary Americans, here are the key takeaways. Rebate checks could provide short-term relief, but may be politically rather than economically motivated. Debt reduction won't change household finances immediately, but could stabilize the economy over time by lowering interest costs. Tariffs themselves are already raising consumer prices, meaning households are indirectly paying for the very revenue being debated. Conclusion: where should tariff money go? So where should tariff money go? Toward families now, or toward reducing debt for the future? If you value immediate relief, rebate checks make sense, though they may not fix underlying economic pressures. If you value long-term stability, using the money to chip away at debt, however small the impact, aligns with fiscal responsibility. Either way, the decision reflects broader values about how America balances today's needs against tomorrow's risks. As citizens, taxpayers, and voters, the choice forces us to think about our own priorities. Would we rather see that money in our pockets today, or invested in strengthening the nation's financial position for the next generation?